Raju in Australia?
Raju.
No. He just got Gordatai deities and he asked me how to take care of them.
Gurudev Mukhar Mataji, Jayalalitha's mother-in-law passed away.
Oh. Jayalalitha's mother-in-law.
Yes, Sudarshan's mother.
Yeah, I got that. So, I guess I should write to them condolences to Jayalalitha.
Naveen and Ananda going to
Fiji.
Fiji today, I think tomorrow now.
Also, very recently, I read that his mother was released from the hospital and they just sent her home to hospice because she was on a steep decline. And today's her birthday, if you could pray for her.
She's in the hospice now. And how much time do they think? Well, obviously she's in hospice less than 6 months.
Yeah, I mean,
How old is she?
83.
That's young. A young girl. I mean, we have a president of the United States who's going to be that old. If he becomes president again. Yeah. Now I'm going to use the chair, which is preferable without arms. This thing drives me crazy. All right. People watching already. Very good. Jaya Punya Vihare Radha Madhava Jaya Punya Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Punya Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava Vijana Ballabha Giri Varorani Jaya Giri Varorani Sodanandana Jajana Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Paramahansa Paravikacharya, also Teta Satashi Shima, His Divine Grace Sabaya, Chalana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Marishila Prabhupada Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shidahvidas Thakur Ki Jai. Remse Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shishi Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Maturadam Ki Jai. Jagadadha Swami Ki Jai. Munamaya Ki Jai. Shivali Lasadeva Ki Jai. Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya. Buddhale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Chinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Vivashesha Shinyavadi Pashata Devi Charasa for the good person of our sake. Move this thing away something. Your Instant Pot went off when that happened, so you gotta reset it. So
This is the third time today, so
yeah, the lectures have been going off all day long.
Yeah, it's
most
a long time right now.
afternoons it's been good this today.
Probably the marriage is tripping all the breakers.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so Omagana Timidandasha Gadanjana Shlakaya Chakshu Remitting Town. Yena Tesmai Shigabay Namaha. So, let me read from the Nectar Devotion Day since it's not anyone's appearance or disappearance day. And yeah, before that, of course, today I spent most of the day reading from Madhvacharya's works because I became really interested in it. Teaches me several different things. Actually, one thing was interesting is that he explained that Hanuman didn't actually bring back the Gandha Madana mountain. He threw it back.
Oh, holy see.
Yeah, he just threw it back. So he has first-hand experience. Actually, Madhvacharya has first-hand experience. On the other hand, I was learning how even pure devotees, they have some bias, which is actually quite interesting. I mean, I was just going through my mind. He was talking about how all the Pandavas were empowered by Vayu, and Bhima was the main Pandava, which is really interesting. And then, from Vyasadev's perspective, Srila Vyasadev's perspective, they were all empowered by different demigods and also by Krishna. And of course, Madhvacharya does accept that Krishna empowers Vayu, but Vayu becomes a much more prominent person in Madhvacharya's descriptions, and in the Tatparata Nirnaya of Madhvacharya. So interesting, this book. He actually goes through the whole, beginning with the 8th canto of the Bhagavatam to the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. He actually gives us the whole Bhagavatam from his perspective, that portion of the Bhagavatam from his perspective. And you see that we're personalists. I mean, I was just thinking, all these different perspectives different devotees have. I mean, like Sripad Ramanujacharya, who we talked about yesterday. His perspective, or at least the perspective he presented, and his followers present, is that Lord Vishnu is the original, and everyone expands from him. And actually, in one sense, it's actually true, everyone expands from Krishna, but they're all the same person anyway, acting differently. So, you have to reset that, don't you?
It literally had 3 minutes, so it should be okay.
Oh.
It's pressurized, so.
Okay, it's pressurized. So, it's actually very interesting to see how devotees are persons. If pure devotees are persons, they have their own particular... They have their own particular bhavs and their own particular slants on the philosophy, even though philosophically there's no difference if you actually look at it from an overall perspective. But it's just so interesting. Because just like I expected all the acharyas to be like cookie cutter explanations, cookie cutter, which means you just have one of those little molds for your cookies and they all come out the same. But it's so interesting. I mean, even amongst the followers of Lord Chaitanya, you have some of them that are followers of Lord Ramchandra, and some of them Radha Krishna, some are coward boys. And they have a different perspective even on the philosophy. Not to deviate from the philosophy. They're all personalists. They all believe that Krishna is God and everything like that. But different aspects of the philosophy are more prominent for one acharya versus another acharya. It's really interesting. Because I was just questioning my mind. This is Madhvacharya, and his presentation differs, somewhat dramatically from Prabhupada's presentation and from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's presentation. So it's actually, you really have to employ something called hermeneutics in understanding these things. But his narration of Krishna's pastimes or Rama's pastimes are quite amazing. And he gets into great depth describing who in Krishna Leela, especially the demons, who they were before. Not just Kalanemi and Viprachiti, I mean everybody knows that. But all these other personalities, oh my God. Like, trying to remember. So, one interesting thing, this interesting thing is that Trivakra, you all know who Trivakra is? Kubja. Yeah, Trivakra had a kid by Krishna.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's from the Puranas.
Yes, when
Krishna had a relationship
Yeah.
where and he had a kid, and that kid became one of the chariot drivers. I think one of the Pandavas,
I didn't know about.
even though he was considered like mixed Shudra, like
Yeah.
that.
Wow.
You learn all these interesting things, which actually in my class at Nukaloka, when we go through the 10th canto, I'll be presenting some of these things. Very interesting. And interesting things about the Ramayana, too, that I hadn't known before. Because he's, basically what he's doing is pulling not just from the Bhagavatam, not just from the Mula Ramayana by Valmiki, but he's pulling from all the Puranas. And, but interesting, he presents certain things that we know just by his bias that, I don't know, it's hard to explain. For example, he says that the primary person who drank the poison when there was the churning of the milk ocean, the poison came out, he said, Lord Shiva drank, but he became unconscious, and then he said, Vayu drank most of it.
So Vayu somehow always comes.
So he's really, it's really interesting. It's just like, I'm sure Vayu drank some of it, but it's just like he's really biased.
It's dagger.
And then he explains why Lord Shiva is called blue-throated. He said because Krishna, Lord Vishnu, came up and after Lord Shiva became unconscious, he touched his throat.
That's a new one.
Wow.
Anyway, it's just so interesting to read Madhvacharya's presentation.
So is that actually what happened with it? Like Lord Shiva was unconscious?
If you talk to Madhvacharya,
Okay.
and Madhvacharya, he's one of our main acharyas, and he's pulling from all the different Puranas, and he knows which Purana is accurate and which Purana is not accurate, and he doesn't pull from the Tamasic Puranas, or the Rajasic Puranas. There's 18 Puranas.
Yeah.
Each and every one is in a different mode of nature. 18 major Puranas, Mahapuranas. And so he pulls from the Mahapuranas, which are sattvic, like Padma Purana, Vishnu Purana. And he knows which parts are accurate. Because he's actually Vayu-putra.
Yeah.
He's not an ordinary, he's a jiva soul, but he's very special because he's Vayu-putra. Anyway, so interesting. I spent a lot of today reading this. For me, it's really interesting, hearing a different perspective on the Mahabharata. I know Hridayananda Maharaj has published his perspective, and I heard that one. And then that got me interested in reading Madhvacharya's perspective, which is different than Hridayananda Maharaj's. And the Ganguly perspective, the most popular version of the Mahabharata we have, is even different. Oops, lost my place here. Anyway, we'll go to Nectar of Devotion. Okay. I thought we would read from chapter 18 of the Nectar of Devotion, which is very interesting because it talks about the character of one in ecstatic love. And, generally we think the character of one in ecstatic love is just rolling on the ground in ecstasy and always talking about Krishna's pastimes with the gopis. But it's very interesting. How do we identify? And of course, these characteristics that are being described here by Rupa Goswami are fully manifest in His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So, let's read. Rupa Goswami next describes the characteristics of a person who has actually developed his ecstatic love for Krishna. Oops. The characteristics are as follows. Listen to the first one. He is always anxious to utilize his time in the devotional service of the Lord. He does not like to be idle. He wants service always, 24 hours a day, without deviation. And of course, this perfectly describes Srila Prabhupada, who would, no matter what time he took rest, he would wake up. You know what time he would wake up?
2 a.m.
Sometimes earlier,
Wow.
sometimes more.
The translation.
And he would write his letter, and also describe Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who had even a more intense schedule. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he would wake up at 10 o'clock at night.
What time is sleep? Maybe 2-3 hours?
He'd go to rest about 8.
Wake up at 10.
Wake up at 10
Wow.
o'clock. Can you do that?
Oh, we could, but then
You'd be dead after a
Function
while.
for the next
We don't be sleeping right now.
You know, so anyway, so he woke up at 10, the whole night, you know, writing transcendental literature. Then around, I guess, 4 or something like that, I don't remember the exact time, he would chant, and then he would take like a 15-minute power nap,
Wow.
and then he would do his correspondence, you know, whatever, and take a little breakfast, you know, some milk. That was about it, you know, a lot of milk. He would take a lot of milk every day, and some chapatis, and that's it. And then he'd go to court and work all day long. You know, in the middle of the day, you know, he'd come back for a little prashad and take a little power nap or something. And then at 5 o'clock, he'd be back home, do correspondence, meet with people, take a little more milk with chapatis, and then take rest about 8, and then wake up again at 10.
Oh.
That's how he got so much done. I mean, if you look at the amount of books that Bhaktivinoda Thakur published, original books, and of course Prabhupada too, if you look at the amount of the books that Prabhupada published, the amount of letters he wrote, I forget the exact number of letters that Prabhupada wrote, but it was thousands and thousands and thousands of letters. The amount of classes he gave, all that within a space of 10 or 11 years. And so, you know, here are perfect examples of someone who wants service always 24 hours a day without deviation. So that's the first characteristic. Whew, I don't think any of us manifest that quality, but anyway. 2, he is always reserved and perseverant. And, you know, reserved can actually mean like humble. Like whenever Prabhupada was praised, he accepted on behalf of his spiritual master. And perseverant, an example would be the purchasing of the Mumbai temple or the property. That even the devotees, there's a story with Samal Krishna Maharaj, he became so frustrated that he basically signed over the contract to Mr. Nair. He said, all right, just give us our money back. And he called Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, this is what I did. And the next thing Prabhupada did is he slammed the phone down. And you didn't talk to Prabhupada on the phone very much. Prabhupada didn't like phones, because the first time he had a phone, someone called him in the middle of the night and asked him, how are you doing? You know, so Prabhupada says it's a waste. So Prabhupada slammed the phone down, and then he was so perseverant, I think most of you know the story, that he tricked Mr. Nair into signing the contract again by arranging for Mr. Nair and his guru to take rest, and then waking Mr. Nair up, and Mr. Nair was obviously in some sort of stupor when he woke up, you know, almost half unconscious. And Prabhupada got him to sign the contract again. After Mr. Nair had cheated so many other people and taken their money. So Prabhupada, you see his great determination. I mean, coming to America with no form of support, no money, just a few books. Incredible. And then the next one is always detached from all material attraction. And Prabhupada had so many material opulences, and Prabhupada never accepted anything on behalf of his self. Even when Prabhupada had was given a Rolex watch, and someone presented Prabhupada another Timex, Prabhupada would just take off his Rolex and give it to that devotee.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
And, he would just put a Timex on his wrist. Don't try that with me. Give me some cheap phone, and you can have my Pixel 8. No way. Or you come and give me your, cheap Chevrolet or something like that.
Can get you tested.
Take my test. And I would just say, get the hell out of here. But Prabhupada just didn't, he lived very simply. I mean, he sat just on a mat on the floor. Even, later on when he had all the wealth, he had access to all the wealth you can imagine. And he just put out a table, that's how, and then taking prasadam, he would just sit on the floor generally. He just didn't have attraction or material opulence. So the next one is, he does not long for any material respect in return for his activities. Prabhupada, when he was asked if there should be a biography, Prabhupada wasn't that interested in it. Of course, after Prabhupada left, that was actually the appropriate thing to do. And just like all of you, you're going around Govardhan, and what are you taking with your camera? Selfies. Right? I just look at what Krishna Keshava posts, and here's his face, him with Gurudev, him with the deities. Yeah, I'm just teasing. Selfies. But Prabhupada, there's that story that Prabhupada got really upset with one of his photographers one time and said, "Stop this." And this devotee got so upset he left the movement. And Prabhupada had to send someone after him. There's that story in the memories. Because Prabhupada wasn't like, someone points a camera at us. Prabhupada wasn't like that. There was absolutely no ego, false ego there. So you see that perfection of the pure devotees. Next one, he's always certain that Krishna will bestow his mercy upon him. That means, of course, according to the principles of Sharanagati, that means always certain that Krishna will protect one, always certain that Krishna will maintain one, and also always certain that Krishna will give him pure devotional service. That's called Ashabanda, hope against hope. 6, he is always very eager to serve the Lord faithfully. So that's interesting, 2 words, serve and faith. That's according to Rupa Goswami's statement, nutshell verse in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Anabhilashita Shanyam Gyanakarmanamritam Anukuilena Krishna Brushilaram Bhakti Rutabam. That one serves the Lord with devotion, joyfully, not just serves, with great ecstasy. And that was Prabhupada. Prabhupada was never depressed. You always found Prabhupada, what's got Okunta, that means eager to serve Krishna, looking for different ways, engaged in yukta vairagya. And then another one is, number 7 is very much attached to the chanting. Whoops. Let's put this back on. Very much attached to the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Sri was. Whenever there was a spare minute, the servants of Prabhupada said that he would pull out his harmonium and be chanting and ask them to come with their cartels. So many beautiful bhajans Prabhupada has. 8, he is always eager to describe the transcendental qualities of the Lord. And 9, he is very pleased to live at a place where the Lord's pastimes are performed. For example, Mathura, Vrindavana, or Dwarka. And Prabhupada said that wherever he was is Vrindavan. And wherever Prabhupada resided became a holy place. So, and then it's explained here. So an unalloyed devotee who has developed an ecstatic love for Krishna is always engaging his words and reciting prayers to the Lord. Within the mind, he is always thinking of Krishna. And with his body, he is either offering obeisances by bowing down before the deity or is engaging in some other service. During these ecstatic activities, he sometimes sheds tears. In this way, his whole life is engaged in the service of the Lord, with not a moment wasted on any other engagement. When I would sit behind Prabhupada, I would notice there were actually tears in his eyes when he was chanting. I didn't want to sit in front of Prabhupada because then he would look at me. And at that time I was a little humble. So I thought, if he looks at me, he'll see the way my consciousness is. So please. So I actually stood. There's the one picture, one of 2 pictures of me with Prabhupada. Actually, there's one where Prabhupada's walking, I'm in front. But there's another picture where I'm sitting in back of Prabhupada. And I would just actually look even at his ears and his eyes. I mean, it's just appreciating every aspect of Prabhupada's transcendental body. And the way he played the cartels perfectly in rhythm. And then Prabhupada's eyes always had some tears in them. You could see the tears sometimes coming down from Prabhupada's cheeks. When a person is undisturbed, even in the presence of various causes of disturbance, he is called reserved and perseverant. An example of this perseverance is reservation is found in the behavior of King Parikshit, as described in the first canto, 19th chapter, 13th verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The king says to all the sages present before him at the time of death, "My dear Brahmanas, you should always accept me as your surrendered servant. I have come to the bank of the Ganges just to devote my heart and soul into the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So please bless me that Mother Ganges may also be pleased with me. Let the curse of the Brahman's son fall upon me. I do not mind. I only request that at the last moment of my life, all of you will kindly chant the holy name of Vishnu so that I may realize his transcendental qualities." This example of Maharaj Parikshit's behavior is remaining patient even at the last point of his life. His undisturbed condition of mind is an example of reservation. This is one of the characteristics of a devotee who has developed ecstatic love for Krishna. And indirectly, we can make reference based on the story of Maharaj Parikshit, of the story of Maharaj Parikshit getting cursed and Maharaj Parikshit refusing to counteract that curse. I mean, that's really perseverant. That's really reserved. Yeah, Shringi, of course, was the Brahmin boy who cursed Maharaj Parikshit. And Maharaj Parikshit had the power of Krishna. And he could have easily counteracted it. And he just saw that as Krishna's will. Just like that verse in the Bhagavad Gita is one of my favorite verses. Yomam pashati sarvatra sarvam shamai pashati tashaham na pranashami sachame na pranashati. That one should see Krishna everywhere and in everything. So if something happens to one outside of one's control, one has to see Krishna there. Also, one doesn't sit back and take it. I mean, if someone comes up to me and starts beating me, it's Krishna. It's Krishna. However, if it's time to leave the body, then we can take some measures, like go to the doctor. But if it's apparent, it'll be like beating the husk and thinking you're going to get something out of it. Then you just like Maharaj Parikshit saw this is what Krishna wanted. And he decided just to take advantage. He didn't get depressed, he didn't get angry. And actually you see that with, we had this one devotee in North Carolina who trained us up in the stages of hospice. You remember that? Yeah, Sangeeta. And she talked about at one stage, when you're informed that you're going to die, you're going to die. You get angry. I'm going to beat it. Another stage like depression. I mean, just like I was with one particular girl, Lochan's daughter. You remember her, right? And I was helping her with the hospice situation. In other words, she had cancer, terminal cancer, so I was going there every day to read to her. And the day before she passed away, she said, I'm going to beat it. She had this really ferocious Kshatriya type of attitude. And, but the pure devotee, like Prabhupada, he never exhibited that particular attitude. He said to the devotees, when the devotee said, should we pray for your health? Prabhupada said, you can pray, my dear Lord Krishna, if you so desire. Whereas most of us, would say, you call me on the phone, send me a text message, Guru Maharaj, pray for me, pray for this, that I will live longer. But Prabhupada said, whatever Krishna wants, I accept. That's also an example of perseverance, as well as undisturbed condition of mind, remaining patient, and all those other things. See, Prabhupada's a perfect example of all these different characteristics. There were no stages when Prabhupada left. There were actually no stages that Sangeeta presented in Prabhupada at all. It was just like, whatever Krishna wants. And you had devotees like King Kulak Shekhar. You know what King Kulak Shekhar? He prays, let me die when I'm young, while the swan of my mind and my voice can chant your holy name, rather than when my voice is choked up. So this is perseverance. How many of us have that? If we were informed, you're going to die tomorrow. Oh my God. Let me check my bank account.
Well, if it was here, it'd be okay.
What?
If we were here, it'd be okay.
Well, see, you may be perseverant.
I mean, we're in Govardhan.
When you're actually confronted with it, it's a different thing. It's not that, we can think theoretically that, all right, you're going to die tomorrow. Okay. I want a second opinion. Just like years ago, I was informed that I was going to die when I was like 65 or 55. I think it was 55. It was 55. And I was thinking, let me go to a different astrologer. So a pure devotee, when they know they're going to die, says, all right. They have faith. But because we don't have faith, we get an anxiety about these things. I mean, we have to be honest. You could say, oh, I'm in Braj, it's all right, we're going to die. But really, when push comes to shove, things are different. Things are different. I'm not saying, maybe you are a great pure devotee like that, who just say, Krishna, thank God I don't have to take care of that family anymore. I know you wouldn't say that, but anyway,
I didn't say that.
no more headaches. Yeah, I mean, one could say it because they just want to get away. Anyway, so, okay, so that's an important characteristic. The senses are always desiring sense enjoyment, but when a devotee develops transcendental love for Krishna, his senses are no longer attracted by material desires. This state of mind is called detachment. There's a nice example of this detachment, in connection with the character of King Bharat in the 5th canto, 14th chapter, 43rd verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is stated, Emperor Bharata was so attracted by the beauty of the lotus feet of Krishna that even in his youthful life, he gave up all kinds of attachments to family, children, friends, kingdom, etc. Don't take this literally. As though they were untouchable stools. None of you should do that.
Oh,
None of you should do that. It's not. I mean, King Bharat was on a different platform than any of us. Emperor Bharat is a typical example of detachment. He had everything enjoyable in the material world, but he left it. This means that detachment does not mean artificially keeping oneself aloof and apart from the allurements of attachment. Even in the presence of such allurements, if one can remain unattracted by material attachments, that is called detachment. In the beginning, of course, a neophyte devotee must try to keep himself apart from all kinds of alluring attachments. But the real position of a mature devotee is that even in the presence of all allurements, he is not at all attracted. This is the actual criterion of detachment. Let me just unpacking that, is that we have this philosophy of yukta vairagya, which means engaging things in Krishna's service, like we're using, the mobile phone and everything like that. But these objects that we're engaging in Krishna's service can be the cause of our fall down too, if we're not mature enough. Like you've seen, many sannyasis have fallen down in our society and elsewhere too. And because one is not a mature devotee or mature enough, so one has to understand one's limitations, one's adhikar, one's right. You can engage this much in Krishna's service. Don't try to engage more. And then we also have to be careful of the things that we were attached to before we became Krishna conscious. Because many of us have so many attachments, like someone, for example, if someone was a habitual drunkard, that means probably they shouldn't take herbal medicine was mixed with alcohol. I saw that happen.
Yeah.
With one devotee I know, he started swigging
the
Medicine.
medicine.
the medicine,
Oh, wow.
because that was his attachment before.
Oh.
So, one understands what one's weaknesses are. But as one advances, if one actually becomes advanced, then you can do all sorts of things. Like you would, like for new brahmacharis, interesting, like for Champaka to understand, new brahmacharis probably shouldn't be watching a whole bunch of girls dancing without mention dancing. You got a 19-year-old boy.
From Charity.
So we're going to see the girls dancing Bharatanatyam. So, I mean, it's interesting. Of course, I do watch the Bharatanatyam, especially when Champaka doesn't dance. No one else is dancing while I watch. So, but it's interesting that Prabhupada, to show an example, one time there was young girls, I don't know if you've seen this video, young girls dancing for Prabhupada. Prabhupada didn't look. You noticed, you saw that video?
Yeah.
Prabhupada didn't look at him.
No.
He was looking, of course he didn't have a mobile phone, but But Prabhupada was showing an example of, obviously, Prabhupada wouldn't be attracted to anything like that. Really careful, sometimes in the name of liberality,
So
being too liberal. There's Krishna playing his flute again.
Yeah, I keep
mm.
hearing.
I become self-realized.
Maybe the same person from
It's
the
beautiful.
background. Yeah.
The flute is such a beautiful instrument, isn't it? Okay, and let's see, it's almost time. When a devotee, in spite of possessing all the qualities of pure realization, is not proud of his position, that is called pridelessness. In the Padma Purana, it is stated that King Bhagirath was the emperor above all other kings. Yet he developed such ecstatic love for Krishna that he became a mendicant and went out begging, even to the homes of his political enemies and untouchables. He was so humble that he respectfully bowed before them. There are many similar instances in the history of India. Even very recently, about 200 years ago or less, one big landlord known as Lala Babu, a Calcutta landholder, became a Vaishnava and lived in Vrindavan. He was also begging from door to door, even at the homes of his political enemies. Begging involves being ready to be insulted by persons at whose home one has come. That is natural. But if one has to tolerate such insults for the sake of Krishna, the devotee of Krishna can accept any position in the service of Krishna. And with Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, he actually was going door to door and begging for the temple in Mayapur, the Yogapith temple. So he went out door to door and begging. And Prabhupada, dealing with us Westerners, showed great humility. I mean, it's not that... there's one interesting story that I just heard about how Prabhupada told Shama Sundar how to beg from George Harrison. Because they were cultivating George Harrison nicely.
Yeah.
And they never asked him for anything. So Prabhupada said, you should go and ask him for money to publish the Krishna book.
Yeah.
And so Chandrasundar went, and he was really upset. Prabhupada said to do this, how am I going to do this? And so he went and he slipped it in, and everyone was really quiet, especially George Harrison. And all of a sudden, all the lights went off. There was a thunderbolt that hit close to the house, and then lights came back on, and George Harrison laughed and he said, yes. Something like, who can argue with Krishna? So devotees should be ready to take a menial position and tolerate anything for the service of Krishna. Anyway, these are interesting qualities. And they can help, understanding these qualities can help us in two ways. One is, can help us identify who is actually an advanced devotee. And number two, can help us become humble and see how much lacking we are in these particular qualities. And then also help us aspire to develop these particular qualities. Okay, any questions? Yes.
So I find it interesting that King Bharat is the example Prabhupada uses for detachment, because then he later falls in love with a deer. So my question is, because
He probably wasn't ready to
we might have a tendency to say his detachment was artificial, that he was actually, repressing his feelings, and then they came out towards a deer. So how do you know when it's genuine detachment and there's just like a
That's
slip up?
interesting. I wouldn't say he was repressing his attachment. It's just that if you read Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he talks about how all the anarthas are gone when one reaches Baba. You remember this?
Yeah.
But they're not absolutely gone. I think his problem was not being attentive enough, inattention, rather than not being qualified for that sort of renunciation. Because, I mean, he was on the, according to the Acharyas, according to Bhagavatam, he was on the platform of Bhava, which means his anarthas were gone, but not absolutely gone. For those of you who don't know what I mean, absolutely gone means they can never come back. Gone means they're not there. So when, ooh, ghosts. Oh, Haribo.
Radhe's coming.
Radhe, Radhe. Okay, we always wanted to see Radhe. So the second part, second part of your question, how do we know? I think we take the association of advanced devotees. Spiritual master, advanced devotees. And if we want to embark on something, some project, we should always Jai, Radhe Radhe. Radhe Radhe Shame Radhe. So we should always inquire from the advanced devotees if there's any question about it. There's not only the question of that we might become attached to something because we're not on a high enough level of devotional service, but there's also the question of over endeavor. Sometimes we could do something we actually have the adhikar for. It means we have the right to do, but it may be an over endeavor. You understand what I mean? Like if someone says to me, you should expand your GBC zone and take on another zone. So maybe, it's not going to cause me to fall down, except physically. So it's not spiritually dangerous for me, but it's an over endeavor, so it's physically dangerous for me. You understand? So that there's two reasons why we should actually think very deeply about something and also ask others what they think. I mean, just like the other day, I got a call from my Kakapa, the Guru Prasad Swami, who was the vice chair of the GBC. And now they're looking for someone else to join the executive committee of the GBC. He said, we'd like to put your name up and become the next second vice chair, who moves up the next year to the first vice chair, who moves up the next year to the chair. So I was thinking about, it's nice to serve. I said, and then I said, oh my God, 75 years old. I said, no. I said, pick another candidate. So in this way, we really have to analyze any prospective service or engagement of the material energy very carefully, because, especially when you're young, like your age, sometimes we can become gluttons for service.
Wow.
Is that accurate?
Very.
Do this, do that. And then we over endeavor, just like, years ago we were going to build another temple for Radha Golokananda across the street. And the temple was going to cost like $7 or $8 million. And I made the mistake going ahead with it. And anyway, very little was lost because we cleared the property and other things like that. But still, it was over endeavor. So one has to know their physical, mental, and spiritual limitations. So don't be a glutton for service. As that great politician's wife said, just say no. That's Ronald Reagan's wife. She said, just say, of course she was referring to drugs.
Yeah.
She thought that, you know, she thought that you could cure the whole drug addiction problem by just saying no, which doesn't work. You have to have a higher taste. But, you know, we have to learn how to say no. You know, so people ask me to do things all the time. Just say no. And another thing, you know, I'm GBC of the Southeast United States Zone. And part of that area includes a community called Morari.
Oh, God.
And so I said, no, absolutely refuse